Welcome to Full Count. Today's topic is about Derek Jeter's outlook on life and business and how he looks at things analytically, as well as Steve Wynn's latest listings. 3 balls, 2 strikes, pressure is on. This is where we discuss real estate, property improvement, and business. Together, we'll strategize on how to win. Welcome to the Full Count. Okay, so today's topic, we're going to start off with Derek Jeter. As we know, he was on a podcast called Drink Champs, and I just found it to be very exciting because I've always been a New York Yankee fan. More importantly, a Jeter fan. I know, Nick, you're also a Jeter fan as well, or at least a Yankee fan. Am I right? What happened?
Yep. No, I'm pointing to my Yankee banner right behind me.
Oh, yeah. So this guy is the captain, right? He's been on the Yankees forever. His whole career, he never left the team, so he had so much loyalty to the team, and I really admire that. But at the same time, in that podcast, what he was saying, which it was good to hear, was he said loyalty can't be one-way street. So even though he gave all his efforts to the Yankee organization, at times he felt that they weren't giving him the loyalty that he deserved. And he started realizing that as he got older. And I just think that's really important. Like this rising star from the beginning to now becoming captain, and he still felt a little, like they weren't really appreciating him, right?
And I also want to preface, if I sound more nasally than usual, I'm fighting a sinus infection, so I apologize in advance. But yeah, I mean,
good, man. Good.
Yeah, Jeter is, I mean, one of the players that have gone, down in history of our modern time, right?
Right.
So that everybody knows. I mean, you could go around the world and people know the Yankees, but people also know who Derek Jeter is. So,
right. It's funny that you said that about you being sick, and that's where I, can respect you today for being on, because you were saying, I don't care what your excuse is, go out and play, or, same thing with the analogy with life, go out and keep going and perform. And you're performing today, Nick, even though you're not feeling too well, which, I'm happy to see that you're still on here today, even though you're not feeling too well.
Exactly. You got to make it happen. I mean, there's a balance there, which we will talk about in a little while, but that kind of plays on in that talk with Derek Jeter on that podcast episode, the YouTube episode. He was talking about how Steinbrenner was just so hardcore, and he looked at every game had to be a win, no matter what, and if it wasn't, then it was a loss, and he didn't look at anything else. So I found that pretty interesting.
Yeah, he said if you got to the World Series, the season doesn't mean jack. You have to win it to mean something, which is that's a pretty extreme way of looking at things. But I think in order to be in such a competitive environment, whether it be in baseball, Major League Baseball, or whatever industry you're in that you're trying to be the best at, I think you have to have a bit of that extreme way of performing an outlook on things. So what I find a little bit fascinating about him is he has this attitude, right? But his presence as a humble leader that stays out of trouble and doesn't say these crazy comments, like a lot of these athletes tend to get in trouble. But the reason why he holds back, and I guess he doesn't act cocky in some ways, is because he was saying on that podcast how he still fears his parents and letting them down and disappointing them, which I found pretty fascinating considering he's an older guy, right? So he's not a young guy, and he still fears his parents to this day.
Yeah. I don't know. Did you watch that documentary they were talking about?
No, but I plan to watch it. Have you seen it?
Yeah. No, I haven't seen it. I want to watch it too.
Yeah, I think I definitely want to watch it because he was talking about how in that documentary, there's people on that documentary that he didn't get along with and said bad things about him during his career.
Things happen in life. I've gone through personal things and, lost one of my best friends in Gerald Williams, and you realize life's short and you don't hold up grudges anymore and you move on.
This is why he's such a stand-up guy, and I appreciate him very much. And growing up, I looked up to him. He said, even though they said bad things about him, he still wanted them to say their own side of the story.
On how they felt at that time,
Right, right. And I feel like most people would, especially celebrities, right? They're so into their own ego and themselves. They only want people to, portray them in a certain way of their image. And that's what Jeter was saying too. He focuses on character. Character is who you really are. And then image is how you portray yourself out in public. So that's another level
Exactly.
of his, badass of being an amazing, person. Portray them in a certain way of their image. And that's what Jeter was
Hmm.
saying too. He focuses on character. Character is who you really are, and then image is how you portray yourself out in public.
Exactly.
So that's another level of his, badass of being an amazing,
Yeah.
person.
Yeah. And I mean, he was making a good point too that, when you become an athlete, when you become a celebrity, what you do outside of your house is public knowledge. And,
Right.
somebody's going to be there to record you if you're doing something stupid, you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing, or if you're doing something that you don't think, you know, agrees with how you want to be seen, you know?
Hmm.
So, it,
Yeah, he
you
was
know,
saying how he would go to the clubs in New York. I'm
oh,
sorry,
no,
what
I
was
was just
that?
saying that you're putting it all out there, you know?
Right. And that's why he was saying that he's so glad that he's the age he is now and didn't grow up with all the social media with
Hmm.
Instagram, TikTok, and all these live streaming things, because he was saying how he would be out at the nightclubs. He still did his
Yeah, of
party
course.
scene, obviously, like we all
Right.
kind of do, but none of it was captured on film,
Hmm.
unlike the guys now. So those people, now that he's in the leadership position at the Yankees, he's telling these young guys, like you said, when you're out in public, just pretend like it's going to get captured,
Right.
essentially.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, athletes now, I don't know how they do it. I mean, just even well-known people. I mean, people in the public eye. I mean, we're doing this and we're throwing
Right.
everything out there, everything that we're saying now, anybody can watch and listen to and whatnot. But I mean, that's a whole nother level, you know?
There's a celebrity
Exactly.
factor, right? So we're obviously not at that level. I don't
Maybe
think we
one
ever
day,
will
maybe
be.
one
But
day.
hey, yeah, I mean, we're not going to be a Jeter, that's for sure. We're not
Yeah,
going to be
yeah.
a
No,
baseball player.
no baseball for me.
Um, right. What also was cool about him is he was saying how he he gets anxiety if he's not prepared. So
Mhm.
unprepared is when he's the most uncomfortable, and that's when the game of baseball or life or business is when you feel like everything's speeding up and
Yep.
you're trying to hold on and catch up to whatever the problems might be and how to fix it. But when it slows down the game or in life, it's because you prepared. Just like
Yep.
today, we prepared for this today, right? We
Right.
watched that podcast. The next thing we're going to do is watch the documentary and be informed. But if we didn't do that and we just got little snippets of lines from the articles, we would probably be bombing this more than we might already doing now.
Yeah, exactly. Or no less at least.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean that, like you said, I'm glad you stated that too, because anything that you do, like you mentioned in life, in sports, in business, anything, right? If you have to do and prepare how you find best in order to be basically confident in what you're doing, right?
Hmm.
Um, that I mean, that goes hand in hand with people in the military, right? They train them so that when they go through extreme situations, it's almost like
Hmm.
normal to them, and their body,
Right.
their mind, and their body react almost naturally, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
I
that's why they
don't
say practice makes perfect. You rely on your
exactly
motor skills that you've been practicing all this time. It's
right.
funny you say this because I was watching. I watched this podcast. I don't know if you do, but it's called the Vigilance Elite, the Sean Ryan Show. He's a Navy SEAL. He interviews a bunch of military men, and he basically says the reason why they train so damn hard in training is that when they're so extremely exhausted or they're injured, they're about to unfortunately die, they rely on what they learned in training, and that applies to anything, right? Work.
So I do know who Ryan Sean is, but
Sean
the
Ryan,
other or Sean Ryan, yeah.
yeah.
The other person I was thinking of was David Goggins. I've
David
been watching
Goggins,
a lot of
yeah,
his stuff, and I'm
yeah,
assuming you
he's
know who
great.
he is, right?
Yep.
He's very hardcore, that's for sure. But I
Extreme.
mean, his his talks are so motivational, and the points that he makes can be applied to anything, right? Obviously, you have to gauge it for your own your own level and your own whatever you're trying to apply it to. But yeah, I mean, some of the things that he went through, I think he said Navy SEAL Hell Week, Navy SEAL training 3 times. So, and then he ran like 100-mile run, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and all by himself over 24 hours. Just look up some of his stuff, and you'll
Yeah, and he broke like every bone in his
it's
hands and
well,
fingers when he was doing pull-ups
yeah. Well, when he was doing that run, he broke every bone in his foot,
in his feet.
and
Yeah.
then at mile like 70 or something, he duct taped it so he couldn't feel it anymore and finished the rest of the 30 miles.
Right.
Um,
And that's where I think it's difficult in life to kind of have an understanding of where's enough is enough. Like, at
right.
what point do you say, okay, that's it. My body can only handle this much, or my mind can only handle this much.
Hmm.
That's where I think it's can be difficult, right, to
Right.
get to that point of understanding. But I
Hmm.
think I don't even know the answer, but as I was asking or speaking about it, now that I'm speaking it out loud, I think a lot of that has to do with training, right? You're training your body and you're constantly pushing yourself where you're almost about to pass out. And I'm speaking for physical terms. And I guess with time, you get to know your body that now you know at what level is your red line, per se, like in race cars.
Yeah, everybody has their own limits, right? And you have to test yours, and they could be at different points. And then as you might test it at stage two, and then you're like, okay, I could go a little further. You test it at stage three, I could go a little further. Test it at stage four, right? And as
Right.
you test it each time, your body's going to recondition. I mean, this applies to your mind. This applies to any skill you're trying to build, right? So it's not only
Hmm.
a physical aspect.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
going back to Jeter, what he's doing now is he's taking his mindset and his leadership skills from the field to
Mhm.
obviously in like the ownership as far as the stadium and the team of the Yankees. Not
Mhm.
he's not an owner there, but you know what I'm saying, what I'm getting
Yeah,
at.
but he is the owner of,
He
Miami,
was
right?
Marlins.
He
He
was, okay.
was, yeah. He recently left the Marlins. I guess um, I don't know. I don't know the exact details on that. I'm sure we'll
Mm,
figure it out in the documentary. But he did leave recently, and that's what he was saying that he liked the Marlins, but
mm,
you can't beat the Yankees, right? He
yeah,
says that it's a generational thing. You're born into the being a fan on the Yankees. He was kind of
right,
alluding to the fact that Miami Marlins, like, there's not that constant history where the passion is there, where people that
yeah.
grow up there constantly all love the Marlins. There's real history behind the Yankees. So
I mean, they were one of the, original teams of American baseball,
right,
right? So, I
America's
mean,
pastime.
yeah, exactly, and, I mean, I also liked how they were talking about and they mentioned that, the stadium is in the middle of the Bronx, and it's in the
Right.
middle of a not so good area. We'll
Yeah.
put it that way. But that does create an intimidating factor for other teams that come and play there,
Gives
right?
them
I
an
mean,
advantage.
now it's a little better than it used to be, but it used to be it used to be very, very bad. Where I mean, even they were talking about this, where the players had to come through basically where the rest of the crowd comes through,
And
right?
people would throw things at him.
Yeah, exactly. Batteries, like Derek Jeter literally said,
He
batteries.
loved it. He loved it. He says it gave him the advantage. It would scare the baseball players.
Yeah, right. It's a psychological thing, right? And I
Right.
mean, a lot of physical aspects are psychological.
Right.
Hmm.
No, it was cool to see him. Again, he presented himself like a true gentleman, but at
Hmm.
the same time, he was fun to be around in terms of how I got to see him off on camera speaking as
Yeah,
himself. But he has his own clothing line now, which is pretty cool. I think we'll watch the documentary. Maybe we'll do a recap on that too. But I
yeah,
wanted to talk about too how he was saying how the problem with baseball nowadays, as opposed to when his last game was now it's more amplified in baseball to focus on the analytics. Which,
hmm,
as you know, I'm a into data. I know you're into data, but he was saying how numbers can't define a person, right? So
right,
if you take one player from a certain city and you put them in another place, things change, right? Their
hmm,
attitude, their chemistry in the area based off of the relationships with people or whatever will change, and it can affect their statistics, right, on how their
right,
performance is. So I thought that was pretty cool too. He says Joe Torre told him that he would say that you can't measure a player's heartbeat in
yeah,
terms of their passion. So
exactly. Yeah, I mean that's just one of the things like we were just talking about, the psychological aspect, right?
mhm.
You can't measure that. You can't measure how somebody's feeling, right? And how that affects their performance. It's hard to measure.
Right.
So there's just other aspects that can't necessarily be measured, at least as of yet. I mean, you can make correlations. You can maybe look at some like biometrics on
Yeah.
heart rate and, blood flow and that kind of stuff. But even still, chemicals in the blood, but we're not there
We're not
yet.
there yet. I don't think we will get to that point. I mean, we
Yeah,
probably will get close to it, but I don't think we'll ever get close to like where it's plain in sight, right?
right.
But
Hmm.
let's jump into now the topic of health, the
Hmm.
national health rate of people, the death rate. If you can touch on that stat.
Yeah, so I think you were saying, so from the Wall Street Journal, right? When
Wall
when
Street
was
Journal.
this? What was this last
About a
one?
week and a half ago,
Week
so
and a half ago.
at the very beginning of the year, I believe,
The Okay. Okay. So beginning of January
sometime.
2023.
Right.
That the life expectancy has fallen since 1996.
Mm-hmm.
So what this year or this past year, the average age is 76.4,
Right.
whereas in 2019 it was 78.8. And that's just for the US though.
Yep. We're
Um,
going back to what, like 1996, 1991 death rate, I think it was.
yes. Yeah.
We're going
But
backwards now.
yeah, in 2019 it was 78.8 years old.
Mm,
And this last year was 76.4 years old. So it's decreased to, a little more than 2 years. And I mean, you look at those 2 years, and yeah, at least in my perspective, that's kind of a given, granted all of the, granted COVID, all the
mm-hmm.
other illnesses and chronic diseases that have been going on, especially here in the US. Like,
Sure.
um, that's why there's such a big push and influence from the functional medicine side of things, right? And I mean, even like Western medicine doctors, the generic hospitals and the doctors you go to, your everyday practitioners are adopting more functional medicine
Mm-hmm.
type of practices,
More
right?
natural things, is
Because
that what you're kind of implying?
yeah, so by functional medicine, I mean identifying what the root cause
Mm,
of a problem is
rather than
and then actually
pharmaceutical.
working to heal that root cause, not just prescribe a medication for a symptom to use it as a band-aid.
You know that you hit it spot on, because in that article I did read that a lot of it, besides the pandemic situation, but a lot of it had
Hmm.
to come down to obviously like people's heart condition issues, because not
Hmm.
everyone's very healthy, but the opioid crisis is
Yes.
killing people. Like you're
Yep.
saying, doctors should maybe focus more on the actual root of the cause rather than giving them drugs and getting them
Exactly.
hooked.
Exactly. See, the root of the opioid crisis is not getting, a chronic health condition where you need to be on those type of drugs longer term, right?
Mhm.
So you don't have to detox from them later. And that's actually related to just a plug to Varsh and I's biotech startup that we have, Block
I
MMP.
heard about that.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
tell
it's
people who
based
Varsh
on
is.
opioid.
Varsh is a
What was
friend of
that?
ours, right? A friend of ours that's
Yeah, Varsh is
engineer.
a friend of ours, also a business partner that we worked with in the past.
Hmm.
Um, and he's also a very technical guy into the biotech industry, and he was the one who actually developed the platform that we have. That's kind of like the foundation of this startup, but it's based around opioid abuse, drug dosages, and administration. But
Cool.
anyway, that's you know that's that's very related, and I think another big causation to this decrease, especially here in the U.S., I mean, is the diet. The sad diet, the standard American diet, which is high in you know additives, added sugars, preservatives, everything else. I mean, also genetically modified crops, right? Where the genetic code is very different from that of even the same type of crop in Europe, right? Um,
Yeah, that
and I
makes
mean, I
sense.
can,
That's why things taste better in certain other countries, right? And
yeah,
you don't
because it's
feel
more
as
natural.
bloated afterwards.
Exactly. You're more satiated because you have a more you were able to provide your body the correct amount of nutrients that food should have, right? But just to what I'm getting at is that there's a very large metabolic crisis. I mean, going on here, especially in the U.S., and that's why I mean you see the obesity rate, and I mean we could maybe plug in some statistics on that.
Right.
I didn't have a chance to. I should have probably gotten those beforehand, but we could put those in like the show notes or something. But
Mhm.
obesity here in the U.S.
Continues
is
to
very high,
increase. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that plays on. There's a number of companies trying to reverse this trend,
Right.
right? But the one of the main causes is uh, high blood sugar, right?
High blood
From
sugar?
that
What do you mean?
blood sugar,
Blood sugar.
like
Oh,
blood
yeah. Okay.
glucose
Got
levels,
it. Got it. Yeah. Yeah.
right? So because when you have high or erratic blood glucose levels,
Mm-hmm.
that affects that goes hand in hand with how you're metabolizing food, right? And how your body is breaking down that food, sending it through your bloodstream to the rest of your body,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's one of the indicators, but it's probably the biggest one as of now that's being linked to a number of chronic diseases. I mean, not only diabetes, but heart disease, lung disease, and a whole slew of other problems, right? That's another big causation of I think this decrease in life expectancy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Um,
could see that, and that correlates with the whole aspect of people constantly getting diabetes.
right.
So you're, I guess what you're saying is the sugar issue is causing multiple
Hmm.
types of sicknesses across the board,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Exactly.
So
Exactly.
what do you? I know you're a big enthusiast when it comes to fitness and health. What do you
Just
recommend to people, just based off of your own opinions?
I mean, number one thing, probably cut out added sugar. Definitely.
Mhm.
If you want to get a little deeper, I mean, you can. One of the companies that I'm a huge fan of that I back, they have. I mean, there's tons of companies that have good material out there, but I would recommend looking up Levels Health. So they provide a program where you could actually get a CGM, which is a continuous glucose monitor,
Mhm.
and you can monitor your own blood sugar and look at how certain foods affect your blood glucose levels
Oh, that's
because
cool.
everybody's different,
Yeah.
and that's kind of where modern medicine is kind of trending is to personalize medicine because we're all different, right? We take a medication, we eat a we eat a food, whether it's
And
a
it
banana, a piece of chicken, whatever it might be.
affects
It
us
affects
differently.
everybody differently. Everybody
What is that
metabolizes
called? Is it biometric? Like
it.
on your watch, your Apple
Yeah,
Watch?
it's a
Okay,
biometric.
it
Yeah,
measures that.
exactly. So you can look up that Levels Health is one of them. There's a number of other ones,
Wait, Nick,
like Vary.
just to
Hmm.
backtrack, Levels Health. I saw it on a Navy SEAL talking about something that he wears on his wrist. It's not a watch, but something else. Is that part of
Yeah, so that's a Whoop band.
Whoop Band?
Yeah, so yeah, I was getting there. So
Sorry,
just
sorry.
to finish on
It
the
just
like
made me
CGM,
think. Hmm.
yeah, startups. Um, so there's Levels Health, there's Vary, there's NutriSense, there's also January AI, and then if you're in the UK and Europe, a big one there is Super Sapiens. But they all provide you a CGM and they give you analytics behind it, and you're able to see your blood glucose throughout the day, overnight, and everything like that. They also provide, information, research, all of that. But as far as getting other biometrics other than your blood glucose
Hmm.
levels, I would recommend either Whoop. I mean, I use Whoop. I like them. It's just a band. Those who are
Oh,
watching
nice.
can see it tracks your
Yeah.
biometrics continuously throughout the day and night, and it gives you metrics such as your heart rate variability, which is a big
Wow.
indicator of health. And I mean, we could do a whole nother episode just on this and how information from these biometrics could
There's
affect
so much to
your
talk
overall
about.
performance and how important it is, and to help you create routines to perform at your peak
Mhm.
optimal level. But yeah, so it gives you
Is that comfortable though?
yeah,
Is it
yeah,
comfortable to
it's
wear or
actually
no?
very comfortable. I sleep with
Nice
it and
too.
everything. But then there's
Okay, I wonder if athletes wear it, like actual
yeah,
professional athletes. I would
yeah,
imagine
they
they wear
do.
it too,
I mean,
right?
Olympic from general athletes to Olympic athletes, they've a lot of them have it. But it tracks your heart rate variability, your resting heart rate, your blood oxygen levels, and your sleep, your recovery, right? So you know your strain, so you know
Wow.
how much based on how well you slept, you recovered, and your other biometrics, how much you can maybe push yourself that following day, right? Um, so
Mhm.
Whoop provides that as a band, and then Aura, which is a ring, provides similar biometrics. So I would recommend people.
Now, have you noticed it, like, actually helping you
Oh,
now that you can
definitely,
measure
100%.
all this? Have you changed your some things in your life
Oh
to,
yeah, focused
get
more
better
on
or
sleep recovery. Like I have, so behind me on my desk there, blue light blocking glasses that I wear at night, an hour or so before I go to bed.
no way,
Yeah, and
dude,
then
you
have
do
all
that?
blue light blocking filters on my computers and any devices. Um,
Okay.
and I mean, a good if somebody's looking for a source for that, I mean, you could buy cheaper ones on Amazon, but if you want ones that really cut out most of the blue light, Dave Asprey actually has a company called True Dark, which actually just got their glasses over Christmas break, and they've been helping a lot. So that's another thing I've done to kind of optimize sleep. Um,
See, I knew this would be a good subject
yeah,
for you to touch on because you're so passionate about fitness and all these other
right.
components to better,
Exactly.
you know,
Exactly. And then
help
one other
you.
thing I want to just mention on
Now,
that is the
okay.
next thing that I want to get is there's two companies, Eight Sleep and used to be called Chili Pad. Now I think they changed the name, but basically they keep the mattress at your optimal temperature as you go through different stages of sleep. So as you start to fall asleep, your body should naturally be cooling down,
Hmm,
right? So it cools the mattress. And then
okay.
as you go through your different stages of like REM, non REM, light sleep, then it'll change the temperature to keep you asleep and to give you more restful sleep. So that's the next thing I want to get. But that is, that's a little pricier than these other things. So,
So how do you approach that with like you know how we were
hmm
talking about Derek Jeter earlier, how in some ways he's very
hmm
extreme on things, right? In his health, I guess you could say, when it comes to
right.
having to win. And then you have this component of these biometrics and your health and having that all in mind about
hmm
sleep and things like that. How do you kind of meet in the middle, I guess you could say, or how do you look at it? Are you on that extreme level of things too, like David Goggins and Jeter, or are you more in terms of like health? If it's gonna make me not sleep, lose sleep for a couple hours, I'd rather not do it.
Lose sleep for a couple. What do you mean? Like, give me an example of lose.
Like,
Give
let's
me an
just say
example
you
of
have a
lose.
big project,
What would
right?
make
Because
you
at
lose
your
sleep?
work, and you're gonna lose sleep
Right.
over it for whatever reason. Are you the type of person that will
Yeah.
say, "I'm gonna lose sleep over it. I'm gonna get it done, do the best I can because I want to be the best and I want to show my boss or whatever"? Or are you more like, "No,
hmm
I want to be healthy. I need to kind of meet in the middle. I still need to sleep. If it doesn't turn out amazing or better than I would like, it's okay."
So I think there's a fine line there, right? And it depends on what your focus is at that time, right? And also depends on how losing that sleep or sacrificing your health for that amount of time is going to affect you, and how that's going to
Hmm.
affect you, right? So like for example with me, right,
Hmm.
if I have a big project coming up, I'm going to want to, if I want to do my best and that's my priority, right, then I'm going to do what I can to do my best and get it done so I don't have to sacrifice my health, right? But if something does come up, things do
I
come
see.
up, people procrastinate. I mean, I'm a culprit of that. Everybody, I think, is, right? Um, if
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
priority
Uh-huh.
is, and say I have the presentation the next day or something, you have to look at, okay, the cost and benefits, right? My priority is to do the best I
Mhm.
can. And I think that sacrificing some sleep is going to allow me to do
Opportunity cost.
the best I can at that and succeed at it, then yes, I will do that. And I mean, I've done that in the past, right? But you also
Mhm.
know how you are going to perform with that sacrifice in health. So say for that sacrifice in sleep, right? So if you have the presentation the next day, you know how you're going to feel. And if you think that staying up all night, finishing a presentation, but you won't be able to cognitively be at your best during the presentation, what's more important? The content in the presentation and maybe preparing for it, or you being more awake and more aware while you're giving that presentation? You know what type of person you are, right? So
Yeah.
I think you really just have to gauge it on yourself. Uh, I mean, I personally cannot do overnighters. Like, if I do an overnighter, I know that even for exams, like back in college, I think that's probably the only time I've ever done an overnighter, and only did it because I knew I had the exam in the morning, and I would be like at that stage where you're overtired, and a lot of the information is still in your short term memory, right? Because you haven't gone to sleep. But I know come like noon, I'm dead. That's it. I need to go to sleep and I'll be out. It's going to knock out like my next day and a half. Like even the next day, I'm still going to be,
You got to know
yeah, yeah, I'm
yourself
still going to be
to
dragging
understand
ass.
what, going back to that, right? At what level you
Right,
redline at, and then
right.
have to pull back.
Exactly. You have to know your limits. And that's why,
Hmm.
okay, try it, right? Push it a little bit. Don't push it too far. You don't want to end up in the hospital or otherwise, right? We're not advocating any of that. But push where you
Yeah.
think your limits currently are, whether it's, I mean, it's limits with business, it's limits with health, it's limits with, you know, mental ability, whatever it is, right? Um, Push where you think those limits are now, and if you get past them, okay, then that's not your limit. It's going to be a little bit further than that, right? I mean, a very easy example of that is like pushing weight at the gym. You know, you think a lot of
Mhm.
people think that their limit, I mean, I do this too, don't get me wrong, a lot of people think that their limit is at a certain point, and that's usually it. I mean, there's statistics based on this, and you know, you can go and look up a number of studies on this, but I think it's like, if I recall correctly, somewhere about 50% mark, maybe, where you think that that weight that you're pushing is going to give out your muscle. You're usually at like your 50% mark because your brain's telling you, okay, this is too much pain and I need to stop. But your brain is there to protect you, not necessarily to make you perform optimally.
I see, and that's why you have to give it
Right.
that extra push. That
Exactly. But just don't
uh,
don't hurt yourself. Don't hurt yourself.
that's an interesting statistic that you're saying. I mean, that means I need to maximize more than what I'm
Mhm.
doing now in terms of
And I mean,
weightlifting.
that goes.
But
So, just one
what's
last thing I want to mention on that because it's related
sure.
is, and I think this is probably one of the most important points, is comfort zone. Right, your brain is there to keep you comfortable and alive. It's not there to have you take risks to help you get to the next stage of where you want to get, right, and to perform at the next level. So that's very
Hmm.
important. And I mean, I'm an advocate of this, and a lot of people, you know, in the health and wellness space are in the business space as well. Is being in your comfort zone is probably the most uh, harming thing that you could do for yourself and your dreams.
Right. Yeah, for years I've been always every like almost like every month I want to do one more
Hmm.
thing to get out of my comfort
Right.
zone, right? And I've always been dancing on the line of redlining. Like I'm always going that extra mile, that extra step in
Hmm.
work and losing a little bit more sleep here and there if I want to beat that other person at whatever it is or get
Right.
that listing or be smarter and read all this, know all these facts. But it also takes a moment to understand you got to take a step
Hmm.
back and I can't keep doing this. I can't keep maximizing all the way where I'm not
Yeah.
feeling
Right.
well. So as of lately, I've been inputting my
Hmm.
work optimization and efficiency. I've been trying to see how I work my hours and what exactly I do per hour, and I've been able to read exactly what
Hmm.
I'm doing. And now I'm going to find a way to be more efficient, so I don't have to keep hitting that max, red line, I
Exactly.
guess you could say.
Exactly. I mean, it's okay to, you know, push your limits for a certain amount of time, but then you need to step back and go through a cycle and recover,
Right.
right? And just to bring it back to the life
Yeah.
expectancy thing, right?
Yeah, and at this point too,
Yeah.
but real quick, at this point too, now I know I'm starting to get an idea. I put so much work in every single opportunity I
Hmm.
do at work that now I'm getting to see how much I make when I do that, when I complete
Right.
that sale, and when it's worth it and when it's not worth it to take
Right.
on a job. So at this point now, I'm like, I'm just gonna let some things go and not take on more things on my plate than I
Hmm.
need to. But sorry, go ahead and go back to the
Yeah, I was
health.
just gonna say I don't, this statistic that it's decreased by, just about 2 years over the past 2 years. Um, I do think that, I do agree with that overall, but we
Hmm.
have the insights and technology, um, and the things that are disposal now more so than ever to live the longest that humans
Sure.
have ever lived, right? So, I mean, if you take these things into consideration, you learn how your body works, your mind works, to create the best life for yourself, then I think that it's completely possible. And they've seen that
To
to
live long.
live, well past 100. So to even
Hmm.
be
It's just the
150.
culture and society in the U.S. needs to change,
Exactly.
though. That's the only thing.
Exactly. Yep.
Because of all the people with, how they're not feeling good about themselves,
Hmm.
depression, social media. You compare yourself to people that have a better life than you, and you realize those people that you look up to, they don't even have as good of a life as you expect. They're just portraying
Right.
themselves back to that image. People need to focus more on the character aspect. And the same thing with drugs. People are going into drugs and destroying their lives when, like you said, we have all these new advances in technology and
Hmm.
health that obviously, if you go to the drugs aspect that are harmful, that obviously will outweigh all the advantages of modern technology and
Right.
science.
Right. And I think people turning to drugs, that's more of a mental thing. Um, and then, obviously it turns into a physical thing because you get addicted to them.
Sure.
But yeah, we should definitely do another episode specifically on, health, wellness, performance. I think that'd be a good.
Yeah, because Steve Wynn, casino mogul in Las Vegas, he's selling 5 of his properties in the U.S. right now. They're on the market. They're all valued in total, if you aggregate them all together, about 300 million. And before I describe those properties and whatnot, actually, first, do you know who Steve Wynn is, right? I'm
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, I saw it from your article. I wasn't really aware of them before, though.
Okay, so he's a business mogul, showman. He invests in
Hmm.
casinos, builds these beautiful resorts in Las Vegas. Also, excuse me, I think he has one in China
Yeah.
too.
His career took off when he invested in the Golden Nugget and added hotel rooms to the casino.
Hi, I'm Steve Wynn, and this is one of the beautiful suites in the Golden Nugget of Las Vegas, which, as
He became its president by the time he was 31 and convinced Frank Sinatra not only to sing, but to appear in a series of commercials.
Hi, Mr. Sinatra. I'm Steve Wynn. I run this place.
Too,
He's
the
the
Wynn
owner of
Hotel
all the Wynn hotels, right? Yeah.
and
Mhm.
Encore. But years ago, he invested in the Nugget, Golden Nugget in Las
Mhm.
Vegas. He's also owned Mirage and Bellagio. He built up Bellagio, and he sold them both, Bellagio and Mirage, for six
Mhm.
hundred million in 2000, and then that's when he built the Wynn Hotel and the Encore sometime
Mhm.
after that. But the guy's amazing, man. I don't know if you've seen his commercial he did when he opened up the Encore
Mhm.
back around 2008. I don't even know how many stories it is, but it's obviously very tall. And he sat at the top of the hotel building. He had a helicopter put him up there, and he sat there and was speaking to the camera. And I mean, this is insane, man. This guy was in his 70s, I think, then, and he was
Yeah.
talking all the way up in
Yeah.
that
Right.
height,
And yes, he really was sitting on top of the building.
Next time, we do this in the lobby.
to the camera, and I just
Yeah. He's
that's
quite
just
extreme.
obviously he's a showman, but
So
he has a lot of
why
balls to do
it
that.
didn't specify why he's
So
selling all his
that tells you his
places?
personality.
I mean, I know he was like flipping some of them before to make a profit, when the market was up. But now that it's slightly, cooling, do you have an idea?
Yeah, I do. So the articles and some of these journalists were kind of well, they didn't even they kind of wrote it or implied it in a way that it's because the market has shifted and he's kind of trying to get rid of everything, right? That's what you kind of would
Mm,
expect. But what it really
mm.
is because he's getting older and he has this eye condition where he's going blind. Um, and there's this realtor in Beverly Hills at the Westside Estate Agency, and I'll read his quote. He said, let's see, he says, Steve Wynn is simplifying his portfolio as he gets older, so his real estate portfolio. He also
Mhm,
plans to stay in one area. So he wants to get
mm.
rid of all his properties so he can stay in one area. And I presume a lot of that has to do with the layout of his house, right? He wants to be able to know his way around it when he eventually goes completely blind, which is really sad. It's harder for him to
Right.
move around state by state. So having all these homes with different layouts obviously doesn't help inconvenience for his life. So I think he just wants to stick to one resting space. And he loves one of the things about him, besides him being a great businessman, he's all about interior design and the beauty of architecture and art. And I think he just wants to focus on one home that he can recall before he goes completely blind, so he could, touch the
Yeah.
cashmere beams and be like, "Oh, I know how this looks," or "I did at one point." So I think that's the main reason why he's selling everything.
Mm, okay. Based on, yeah, the health
He has
aspect.
a
Interesting.
retinitis pigmentosus, which basically means it's like seeing tunnel vision. So you're seeing the tunnel,
Yeah.
and eventually it just gets smaller and smaller and smaller until you go blind. So that's
Mm,
what it is.
okay.
But no, he sold in 2021 in Palm Beach 2 homes already. So it's not like he's
Yeah.
selling at a bad time, like he made a bad decision. I mean, this guy builds hotels, resorts, and
Yeah.
sells them. I mean, this is like easy for him, I would imagine. So he sold 2 Palm Beach homes last year. Um,
Mm,
he sold one for 24 million last year when he bought it for 18 million, and then he sold
yep.
another home for 32 million in 2022. I shouldn't say last year; I meant 2 years ago. But in 2022, he sold a Palm Beach home for 32 million when he bought it for 24 million. So he obviously made
Yeah. I saw
profit.
that. That's a huge profit. Just did he? I don't know
He
if he did
renovates them
anything
first,
on
though, by the
the
way. He
witty.
renovates them and then he sells them.
Yeah, he renovated the first one you mentioned, but did he renovate that second one in Palm Beach that he sold for 32?
I don't think they got. I got that information.
Okay, yeah, I didn't see that on
Yeah,
there. I was curious though, but I mean, they're beautiful places.
yeah. I mean,
I mean, if you see pictures of them.
in Sun Valley, Idaho, he has 2 properties. One's a mansion, one's like a casita house, which is for the guests, but it's a big
Hmm.
one. It's like over 3,500 square feet. It's on 2.4 acres for sale for 27 million. He bought it in 2009
Hmm.
for 7.5 million. So obviously he's going to make a big profit whether he sells it at this price or
Yeah.
less. But I guess when he bought it, according to his realtor at the time, she said that the house in 2009 was a heavy, dark mountain lodge type home, and what he did was he lightened it up and really opened the layout a little bit more, and that's kind of his style: light colors, and then also bright colors as well, because his obviously his eye condition. He wants to be able to walk in and kind of see a little bit versus a dark area per se.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that is a big thing, knowing the layout of the place that he's going to stay at. I mean, that's what I wouldn't want to
Hmm.
do. You know, I would want to be in one place and have it mapped out in my head and know where I need to go.
Right. And then
Hmm.
I'll speak to one more property of his. He has another one in more in Palm Beach in New York, but I want to talk about the one in Beverly Hills. It's a contemporary home, almost 3 acres. He had it on the market about 2 years ago for 125 million. Now he's asking 100 million, which is insane, right? It's in Beverly Hills, the city of Beverly Hills, 90210. It's not Beverly Hills Post Office. Beverly Hills Post Office is called Beverly Hills, but it's actually in the city of Los Angeles. Beverly Hills is the city that happens to be in Los Angeles County. So his home is an actual city of Beverly Hills, asking 100 million. And the reason why I want to specify that is because if you go into Beverly Hills post office, the homes are about
Hmm.
50% less expensive, but it's still a great, beautiful
Okay.
neighborhood. It's just adjacent
Yeah.
neighborhood, a little bit more inland from the actual Beverly Hills area. So his house that he has for sale in Benedict Canyon is only 1 mile away from the Beverly Hills Hotel. So you can only imagine how beautiful it is.
Oh
Yeah.
wow. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So if anybody out there wants to buy him in his homes,
I know,
they're for sale.
that would be nice. I should go tour it, man. I
Yeah,
should go tour it since I work there.
you should. Yeah, I would.
Yeah. But no, I think it's pretty cool. It's got a tennis court. It's everything, right? Everything you could ever want. And then he's got his art pieces in there, which is pretty nice.
Hmm.
So yeah, he's gonna end up retiring and settling down in Florida. Palm Beach is his spot.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't blame him. I mean, Palm Beach is beautiful.
Well,
That's where probably I'll end up too.
that's the goal. That's the goal for sure.
Yeah, maybe sooner rather than later. We'll see.
Right. But yeah, just so yeah, there we go. We kind of touched on everything.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. Anything you want to leave everybody?
No, I'd like you guys to subscribe, hit the notification, and comment on what you think about our discussion, whether you agree with us or not, or add more value to what we already talked about. And what was that wristband that you wear, Nick?
Oh, we'll do a podcast maybe on just on health.
Well, what's the name of it though? I want to know if people have it.
Whoop
Whoop
Band.
Band. If you have Whoop Band,
WHOOP.
if you have Whoop Band, go ahead and comment.
Yeah. We'll do a whole review on
We
it
should.
too. Get an affiliate in there.
All right, everyone. Thank you very much.
All right. Take care, all.